Greetings and welcome to The Black Room. This is the podcast for all things erotic mind control, and I am your host, Callidus. And it has been a little while since we've been together, since episode 9 came out, and I do apologize for the extended absence. It was not planned, but it was very, very necessary, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later in the show as part of some things I want to discuss, and also some questions that I've been asked recently that I'd like to answer. Also coming up in this episode, I'm going to be talking about an excellent Deviant Art page that you're going to want to look into, a fantastic new story from Tabico that's been going up to the archive over the past several weeks, and an author recommendation for fans of Femdome, Erotic Mind Control. Of course, in the bottom half of the show, I'm going to have the third and final part of my excellent conversation with Madame Kistulot. You're definitely going to want to check that out. But first, let's talk a bit about Deviant Art. I found a page recently that has really become the launching point to discovering a lot of excellent content on Deviant Art. And there really is a lot of excellent content for an erotic mind control fan on Deviant Art. And one of the problems is that there's so much out there, it can be a little overwhelming to try and dive in somewhere and just discover things. And that is part of the reason that I really think you ought to check out the Deviant Art page of a member called Singory, 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 at Deviant Art. Now, Singory is not an artist, but is rather a patron, and has a pretty wide array of fetish interests that are also going to overlap, I think, with many of you listening to this show. Their page is a terrific vector to find lots of other erotic mind control content and related things on Deviant Art. So if you're on Deviant Art, if you're not on Deviant Art, but you're looking for a place to just find a lot of content from a lot of artists, find a starting point to get into the community and the artwork going on there, Singory's page is a terrific place to bookmark. Singer has created a number of favorites galleries with a lot of artwork from a lot of different artists that cover some really great fetish territory, including mind control, hypno hive, which is like bee girls and insects, robotization, evil corruption, mummification, dolls, transformation, fan fiction, and even more than that. And as I said, really in depth. The mind control gallery alone is 9 pages deep with 20 or more images per page. So if you're interested in mind control and some of the other things that are kind of orbiting that fetish, the favorites page alone from Singory is going to be a great gold mine for content. And of course, every one of those pages, every one of those pieces of artwork is going to lead you to another page, the artist who created it and other work that they created. And so the spider web just kind of starts spreading out from there. Now, as I said, Singory is not an artist, but they do commission quite a bit of artwork. And one of the recent commissions that they've posted to their Deviant Art journal was really hot, and I got a really big kick out of it. It's based on XCOM 2, which is a video game that came out just recently, and it's something that I've been playing quite a bit. And it's a really great foundation for some erotic mind control stuff. XCOM already has mind control built into the game, not really of an erotic nature, but there are telepathic aliens that can take control of XCOM soldiers in the middle of combat, turn them against their allies, things like that. There's also, within the story of the game, some technology-based mind control, chips implanted in people's skulls, things of that nature. Not quite as overt, but there's definitely mind control underpinnings to the game. And the short comic, it's 4 or 5 panels, that Singory posted is really fantastic. Number one, it works as a short comic that features transformation / mind control. The premise of the comic is that an XCOM soldier is stunned by one of the alien forces, they're called the Advent, is stunned by the Advent, taken hostage, wakes up in a sinister looking table, strapped down, evil robotic arms crawling into the frame threateningly, and the female soldier is informed that they're going to serve the Advent, that they're going to hunt their former comrades in XCOM. Of course, they say this is never going to happen, and then in the next panel, you see this transformation process taking place, these uniform pieces being attached to the female soldier's body, the helmet going on over her head. Very reminiscent, actually, of the robot transformation sequence at the end of Superman 3, what it calls to mind for me anyway. And then in the final panel, the female soldier is now dressed in the garb of an Advent officer directing Advent troops to go after XCOM soldiers, transformation having been complete, and she now is a loyal servant of the Advent. So it's a great little story that has some, kind of hot, fetishy stuff to it, but the thing that's so great about it is it's totally in line with the narrative of the game, with the combat situations of the game, and it's a beautiful little piece. The artwork is great, but the ideas underneath it, the foundation underpinning the writing and everything, is so in sync with the game. It really is a treat if you happen to have played XCOM 2. And if you haven't played XCOM 2, I'd highly recommend playing that game too. If you're gaming on PC, it's a great turn-based strategy game. So, Singory.deviantart.com is the URL that you're going to want to go to. Singory.deviantart.com. Of course, the link is going to be in the show notes. And I think you're going to find a lot of stuff there to enjoy. Superheroine stuff, fan fiction stuff. There's a recent journal entry talking about brainwashing music making an appearance in a Jim and the Holograms comic, which is that's cool and a discussion in and of itself. Singory.deviantart.com. Go check it out. I think you're going to find something there to keep you interested for a little while at least. Next up, as I said at the top of the show, it has been just a little while since episode 9 came out. In fact, it was late November last year, so 4 months now. And in the time since then, I've gotten a number of notes, a number of questions, emails, messages on Tumblr, and so forth, asking, number 1, what's going on with the show, number 2, what's going on with me, and number 3, what's going on with the film project that I teased last year. So let's take a few moments and just discuss those things. The answer to all 3 questions, what happened, is that I found out that my job is being eliminated later this year in 2016. And I'm fortunate in the sense that I have time. I have foreknowledge that it's going to happen, and I have time to prepare for it. But when I found out, I basically dropped everything, all my extracurricular activities, including my email correspondence, which several of you listening will know. I dropped everything and immediately started working on my portfolio, my resume, and getting myself prepared to start looking for a new job for the first time in a very long time. And it's a scary proposition, and particularly with my real life obligations, but it also represents new opportunities, which I am excited about. But until I have secured a new job, new stable employment, I really do have to limit the amount of time I spend as Callidus and doing things as Callidus. So I'm still working on manips here and there. As a matter of fact, I've got a new animation that is almost complete. I think by the time the next episode of the podcast comes out, I will have had that finished and released, and I'll probably do a little director's commentary. But I'm just going much more slowly because I really do have to focus my efforts right now. So with regards to the final question, what happened with the film project, basically I've just had to hit pause on the film project while I've been concentrating on building this new website for my vanilla self and the job hunting that I'm going to be using that website to do. So I guess that the thing that I want to say is I've continued to do quite a bit of writing, actually, both on my original idea as well as some other ideas, some other film project ideas. It's still very much something that I want to do, and the first opportunity that I have to do it, I will do it. I just need to be on a more firm foundation before I launch any new ventures than I feel like I am right now. So I guess the bottom line is that it's still coming, but it's going to be coming later than what I'd originally hoped for. And I suppose that this is the very embodiment of the old maxim about, if you want to hear God laugh, announce your plans. I've announced my plans, and I can hear the laughter. I don't know about you. But I hope that that doesn't sound bitter or resentful in any way. I really am quite optimistic about the opportunities that the future holds. I just have to get a few things in place before I move forward with any of that. So thank you, everyone who has inquired about that. I'm delighted to know that people are interested enough to email and write and find out about it. I'm very excited about that, and I'm very excited to do something with my ideas and to share those with you, because I think it'll end up being a pretty fun project when all is said and done. But I will keep you informed as that situation develops and let you know when things are moving forward again. And as I said, manipulations, animations, those kinds of things I'm already getting back into and starting to work on again. I'm very excited about this new animation piece that I've got all the visual work done. I'm finishing up the writing right now, and that's something I'm going to be really interested to talk about on the next episode of the Black Room podcast. I'll give you a little tease and let you know that it involves a bit of squick, which I don't do a lot of in Manips, but I'm really excited about what I've been able to do with this particular piece. Very much inspired by the squick work of Trilbiels and Thrall and Tabico, which actually works as a terrific segue to talk about this new Tabico story called Pierced that has been going up to the archive for several weeks now. As a matter of fact, there was no update this past weekend at the archive, as I'm sure many of you have already discovered, and I found myself in complete dismay because I had forgotten that there wasn't going to be an update this weekend. And I show up early Sunday morning, really eager to check out the new entries, and of course there's no new entries. So I am just sitting here waiting for the days to roll by until Saturday night and the new update. And I don't know if we're going to get a double dose, if it'll be sort of a double release since Simon missed a week, or if we're just going to get kind of the standard 2-3 parts that have been going up each week. But whatever it is, it's going to be worth the wait. And if you've not read this story yet, I really can't recommend it enough. There's a lot of fantastic things happening here. Tabico doing science fiction is always a treat because she writes such great characters, and her world building is just so good. She always infuses so many really rich details into not just the story that you're reading, but all the details about the world that it takes place in, and really brings things to life. For those who don't want anything specific ruined for them right now, I want to give you some broad strokes, just to give you a bit of a flavor of the story. The basic premise is that in the distant future, when the galaxy is filled with spacefaring humans, in a little planet off in the corner, a resort planet, a pleasure planet called Strand, where people from all over the galaxy come to go on vacation and wear bikinis and get some sun and go swimming and enjoy sticky hot girl sex. Two lovers are enjoying each other and the aforementioned sticky hot girl sex when a full-scale invasion of the planet begins. There are these little creepy crawly aliens that can attach themselves to the bodies of women. The aliens don't really have a lot of use for the menfolk. They get killed. The women get the creepy crawlies and get mind controlled. So these little alien crawlers attach themselves and take over the minds of these women. And then once these women have been brought under control, once they are part of the brood mind, then they begin to enslave other women. And slowly, or actually not so slowly, the circle of enslavement grows wider, and more people on this planet fall under the control of the aliens. And there's a lot of aspects of the story, a lot of the scenarios that remind me of the zombie genre, in the sense that it's about a group of survivors, and they're vastly outnumbered. There are these aliens, in this case, these Xenos, that are a constant threat. And of course, if they get you, you become one of them, and one group will be together, and then they'll get split up by some catastrophe. And, so then one or two characters will end up with another group that they run into, and then they'll be together, more people will come in. And all of the kind of the trappings, all the drama of that genre, like what's the long-term goal? How do we live a life long-term with what's going on? What's the end game? Where can we go to be safe? All of those scenarios that come up in zombie stuff. A lot of that is represented here and played out very, very well. Of course, it's even better here because when the aliens or the women who are controlled by the aliens get you, super hot, squickalicious, bug girl sex happens. And there's a lot of really, really fun enslavement scenes in this, a lot of sneaky ways, especially the women who are controlled and who are now vectors for enslavement. The way that they go about covertly subverting, seducing, enslaving the other women in the story, that is where there's a lot of heat. And that kind of hiding in plain sight quality. One character in particular is quite the seductress, and there's just so many really rich and just sexy moments with her slowly playing kind of 10 little Indians and bringing this person under her control, and then this person, and so on and so forth. Really, really fun stuff. So check out Pierced by Tabico. There are 13 parts up right now, and there's plenty of questions unanswered, so I expect that there will be plenty more fun before this story finally reaches its conclusion. And if you would like to get an idea of what some of these characters, some of these things might look like, Tabico's collaborator, Uzubono, has created 2 renders over at her Deviant Art page depicting moments, characters from the story. It's not, I don't want to get you too worked up, it's not like a comic adaptation or anything, but it's just simply images of what the women with these aliens attached to them might look like, and what the women who have been taken over for a while and are beginning to show physical changes as a result of their enslavement and the genetic changes that are happening now that they're part of the brood, what that looks like. If you'd like to see some visuals to accompany this story, then you can go to Uzubono's Deviant Art page. Of course, there'll be a link for that in the show notes. And speaking of the show, on the next episode of the Black Room podcast, I'm going to have the first part of an interview, a really excellent conversation I had with Jukebox, a very prolific, very talented author, somebody that I've been a fan of for a while now, and really enjoy the opportunity to finally get a chance to speak with him about his amazing stories. So be on the lookout for that. Brush up on your Jukebox catalog. There's a lot of stories in there, but we had a really fun conversation, talked quite a bit about his work, and there may also be a guest appearance from his own personal hypnodom, Lady Ruetha, as well. So you definitely want to be on the lookout for that next episode of the show. While we're talking about talented authors, there is an individual that I discovered just recently, and I say I discovered them, they just recently began posting stories to the archive, but I've read everything they've put up so far, and it's been really, really fun, particularly if you are a fan of female dominant, male submissive, erotic mind control. This author, I think, is going to be right in your wheelhouse. Their name is Dr. Moroculus, Moroculous, and they posted their first story in January, and they posted 2 more since then. The thing that really struck me about this author, and at least the style that I see through these 3 stories that they've uploaded so far, is there's a lot of focus on technology, which I love. I love technology-based enslavement, brainwashing, conditioning, not the simple sort of hypnotic inductions and things like that, but programming. People, men in this case, being reprogrammed to be slaves to these powerful, dominant women. The first story that they uploaded is called Wedding Plan, and this went up at the beginning of January. And I'm going to talk a little bit in the way of spoilers, but I don't want to ruin too much, so as to encourage you to go read the story for yourself. But the premise of this story is that a man wakes up. He's not sure where he is, some sort of sinister laboratory. There is a latex-clad woman stalking around him, preparing equipment and instruments in the room. And the last thing he remembers, he was at a bachelor party. He was, at a strip club having fun on the night before his wedding, and now he's here. And this menacing, dominant woman informs him that she has been paid by his bride-to-be to brainwash him because his fiancée wants him as a slave husband. So that's the setup, and the story, which is about 1,500 words, I think, is the enslavement scene that follows. And there's a lot of really, really hot moments as she's described putting the visor on his eyes, putting the headphones over his ears, and beginning to stimulate him with lights and sounds and electropulses, and her hand wrapped around his cock. And of course he can't hold out forever, not when he's so overwhelmed and when this feels so good. And it's a really, really well-written piece. One thing that I really enjoy about the 3 stories Dr. Moroculus has shared so far is the sense of danger that you get from his dominant female characters. These hypnodoms are powerful and nefarious and intimidating, and I really, really like that. I think it's a potent mixture, and I think that they're very well motivated. They have goals. They have a plan, something that they're trying to achieve, and the enslavement that we see in these stories is in pursuit of that. And oftentimes I see stories that are similar in terms of the genre and maybe even the scenarios, but it feels like the mind control is happening just for the sake of the story as opposed to being motivated by any desire of the character. And I really like the way that Dr. Moroculus handles that. I think it demonstrates some real talent as a writer and looking into the characters and sort of finding the story through the characters and letting them kind of lead the proceedings. I really, really recommend that you check out these stories. The 3 that are up right now, Wedding Plan, as I mentioned. The next one that went up chronologically is Address in Mind. And then the latest one, which was the beginning of February, is called The Lost King. And hopefully Dr. Moroculus will be back with some new work soon. I've really enjoyed everything I've read from them so far. It's very hot, very sexy. There's an edge to it that I really enjoy. And if you like female dominant erotic mind control, I think you're going to find something to enjoy here. So make sure and check that out. Again, the link to Dr. Moroculus's page on the Erotic Mind Control Story Archive will be in the show notes for this episode, which you can find, as always, at podcast.callidus-mc.com. All right. That is the news and reviews section of the show. Now it is time to finally get to the third and final part of my epic conversation with Madame Kistulot. As I was listening back to this in preparation for the show going up, I was reminded of how much fun I had speaking with her, and how, even though this is the first time we've ever had a conversation, it really did feel like we were old friends getting back together and catching up after too long apart. And I really hope to have her back on the show again in the not too distant future, once she's a little less busy and once I'm a little less busy. We both would like to try and get together again and chat a little bit more. For right now, settle in and enjoy part 3 of my interview with Madame Kistulot. When we were first kind of brainstorming what we were going to talk about, one of the things that came up in relation to Tabico is squick. Obviously, Tabico has a great fondness for squick. I basically like squick because of Tabico and Thrall, essentially. What are some of the things that Tabico's done with squick that have really stood out to you over the years?
Well, one of the things that stands out the strongest is adaptation, because I am deadly afraid of not so much mosquitoes, more of a bee thing for me, but just horrible insects with stingers. And adaptation basically turns, here's this giant insect stinging you terribly, planting something on top of your head, but you're going to be so hot, you're not going to care something that's going to burrow into your skull is growing on top of your head. You're going to spend more time masturbating about it until then you are just subsumed.
It's just too late.
And it's so... definitely, I say that, a lot of people will just think of Tabico as the squick master, and that's not necessarily completely fair, because, a lot of the stories we've mentioned are completely non-squicky at all.
Yeah.
But the ones that are...
It's just one of the things she does really well.
It's because, when I think of a parasite like that, I'm just thinking of how it's working. There's a biological feeling I get from what Tabico's doing. It's both, you get a sort of, not exactly clinical, but a medical view of it, and then you get to see the sort of where that crosses over into the human element. Here's this horrible, gross thing connecting itself to a human being, penetrating the brain, which, we all like to think of our minds, a lot of people do, as this ethereal thing that just contains all of our thoughts. But the brain's what builds all of that, and it's just being drilled into, and then pop. You have this horrible thing invading your mind, pleasure conditioning you. And there was, I can't remember the story now, but the one with the mother and the daughter sharing parasites, and there's just this feeling of things that are gross and great.
Mindworms?
Oh, that too. Mindworms is a great one too.
Mindworms is fantastic. I find that I really go back to the second one, Mindworms Facility.
Yeah.
That one is great.
The slow little hints of people slowly just dropping their guard in ways they really shouldn't, because that's not really smart, or this is hot and I shouldn't be enjoying this, and then...
But I am.
Yep. Plus, a little bit of a bonus is that the first story started out in Oregon and almost nothing happens here, so that's always interesting.
What do you got? You got Bigfoot and Tabico stories. That's what you got in Oregon.
I am happy with that. That is our claim to fame. I'll live with it. But definitely very strong squick.
Yeah, going back to adaptation, that one is really interesting as well, because, it just owes to how much, how much weight and imagination Tabico can bring to bear on her material. But I love just the thinking through of the whole ecosystem, the life cycle of this thing, and how it fits into its procreation cycle, and why it would make sense in, from the standpoint of an ecosystem. I was talking about earlier how, some of these visions of a mind controlling hive, you can't really imagine that functioning in a larger world view. But that detail in that story, you're like, it's an alien world and so forth, and you're like, oh yeah, that would totally work. That totally makes sense.
Her world building is immensely powerful.
It is, and the thing is that she's done it so many times. She's got so many different, kinds of mythos that she's either created herself or contributed to, like Iago's Middle Earth line and everything.
Or just being able to take the yellow musk creeper, which I've desperately tried to fit into campaigns ever since Tabico. There's not one in the 4th ed book, and it drives me crazy. I should stat one up, make it a higher level for the campaign I'm running right now. But yellow is amazingly powerful. It's got the betrayal angle, it's got squick angle, it's got these wonderful fantasy archetype characters that are, captured, they're slaves now, they're going to be, they don't even know what, and then, here's
experiments for a mad sorceress.
That just I want to see that module because I hate playing pre-done modules just as a thing, which is another nerd tangent. But that would be I would do that. I would run that so much.
Well, I think that yellow is kind of interesting, and I remember when I talked to Tabico about like what other kinds of things that she's written or enjoys writing, and she says she likes quite a bit of fantasy, and she was saying that yellow is actually pretty emblematic of the other fantasy kinds of things that she's done that don't involve erotica or mind control or both.
It makes me want to know what that other name is. I mean, I would never do that, but just that makes me want to read more. But definitely, you can see it because it's in such. I mean, that's a pretty short story, all things considered. Yellow. It's just, if I remember correctly, it's one self-contained part. It's just 15K, but you get a lot in a very short period of time that makes this whole world work. And granted, some of it helps if you already have a high fantasy mindset, just waiting to be ticked on. But it establishes the tropes it's following, and there's no need for any additional suspension of disbelief as you hit any point of the story. By the end, you are completely right there as the horrible truth is revealed about what's been going on the whole time. Beautiful.
That's one of those qualities. Like, there's a few tropes that I tend to associate with Tabico's stories. What's been going on the whole time being one of them, and the other is past the point of no return. Like those are things that I see her playing with a lot in different ways throughout her catalog.
Oh, and another trope for her specifically, because when I did two sort of artist studies that I've finished so far, Trilby and then Tabico is the natural progression, in my opinion. Especially when you read so much Trilby and it's saying, I owe this all to Tabico. You read so much Tabico, it's saying, I owe this to Trilby.
I owe this all to Trilby, yeah.
It's beautiful little connection there. But one of the great tropes with Tabico was the sort of lie of you can't interrupt hypnosis. Once this has started, if you interrupt it, it'd be more terrible than anything that could possibly be happening to their brain. So sit back while I mind control this person in front of you. And it's a beautiful little nasty trick that plays on that sense of, I don't know, this could be true. Do I risk it? I can't kill this person's brain because I want to save them. It's so deliciously evil.
Yeah, it sets up this great sort of ethical Gordian knot. Another one that is a little bit more on the squick side, although ironically, it's one of the few stories I can think of off the top of my head that has like a really traditional hypnosis scene in it as well, is P.
Oh yeah.
And P, like talking about, I completely ripped this off from Tabico. I did a piece, I think last year, the year before, called Cultivate. That was about a pollen producing, mind controlling plant in somebody's backyard. And it's pea. Like pea is completely different. It's got pod people and things like that. But something about just mind control in the backyard, Tabico is what got me thinking about it.
And it's a great twist on, as she put the sort of, I don't know exactly the sort of self-deprecating synopsis of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, sort of. Just the middle of nowhere, rock falls, plant, horrible, terrible things come out of it, sort of. And that is a great story, though.
It is.
Plant stuff is especially, like, you see a lot of biological squick, but plant squick is something I don't know if you see as much of. I admit I need to read more of newer stuff. I keep trying to get back, and then I'll get swamped with life, and I'll get behind. But there's something different about with an animal or a what's the right word? Sort of more mammalian or even reptilian, something that's considered to normally be more towards sentient. It's almost
something that has intellect.
Exactly. It's sort of a wars of like against like, and which is designed to win. But with plants, it's sort of this is something that's completely harmless. It's just sitting around everywhere. But if you think about just how much plant matter we just ignore on a daily basis. Oh, what's going on? Why are you sneezing? I have allergies. How much of that snot is because of horrible mind control plants? It's just, and then the thought of like the whole going into a brain, like an ear is a perfect spot to slip a seed into, which I've done more than once because it's so visceral to think of that innocent potted plant is just seconds away from a flower that you can't stop staring at.
Which is, Tabico did, I can't remember the name of the story, but, something about alien world, plant pollen, and like a team of scientists, and of course it all goes wrong. And then Trilby did one as well that I can't remember the name
Fruition.
of off the top.
Fruition.
Fruition. That's the one that actually has like the hypnotizing flower that is of course connected to the larger ecosystem, as it turns out. But there is something about that. I think that I'm stealing from Tabico here, but she said that there's something that is really hot about this thing that you're smarter than, and yet you obey it now.
Yeah, and
there's something about that that's really, really taboo and exciting.
Yeah, I remember Fruition especially hitting on that the plant had no intelligence whatsoever. It was just doing its thing, but then it could absorb this thing and use its intelligence. And the first thrall that was converted into a sort of plant woman just very happily saying, oh no, the plant is completely stupid. I'm just obeying a very, very dumb master. Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter. Speaking of squick, one of the squickiest stories you will ever read in your life is a joint effort between Thrall and Tabico, a collaboration called Arachne, or the Icky Squicky Spider. And I tell you, it's one of those stories that, like, there are moments in it that really, really unnerve me. And I'm not an arachnophobe.
Yeah.
But there are moments that are really, really unnerving in that story, and yet it is so compelling. I mean, there's some ridiculously hot stuff. And
it's amazingly romantic.
It is, yeah, yet again, which I think Thrall and Tabico both really have a passion for that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think that either of them really likes doing horrible things to their characters.
And I feel like if you're a writer that does necessarily, I mean, okay, it's a hard thing to put into words properly, because if you don't do terrible things to your characters, you're boring. To some degree or another. But at the same time, like, if you really are attached to your characters, which I think you have to be to make their pathos matter, you want to sort of coddle them. But then it's sort of like, you know what? No, sweetie, you can go to school today. You're feeling fine. Don't worry about that woman with the pocket watch. Everything's fine. I'm just going to be back here with a camera. No, that's totally not weird.
No problem at all.
But I totally know that feeling. I'm guilty of that more than once. The entire first Silver Girl series is one after another of happy endings, whether that's good or not.
Right. Well, and I don't know. It's one of those things that, I don't know, I guess either it takes courage or experience or something as a writer to just go out there and just do that to your characters. So, like we were talking about with Trilby.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're really going to create a compelling story, you're probably going to have to end up killing off a couple of your characters. Now, that's not an excuse to go all Joss Whedon on it or anything.
Or R. Martin.
Right. Yeah,
Whedon has nothing on him.
No, he really doesn't.
For the better, I think.
One thing you were just talking about that I think might actually be fun to explore just a little bit more as we kind of close in on the or as we slowly wind down to the end here is new stuff versus old stuff, because I find myself really hungry for the same quality of story and of character and just the erotic heat and everything as these really talented artists that we've been talking about. And it's not always easy to come across, but there have been several people that have popped up more in recent years that have really gotten my attention. And I thought we'd just maybe swap some names here and just kind of see, if we happen to be following some of these same writers. Have you followed? Okay, I'll go first. Have you followed any of Jukebox?
Jukebox is one of those writers that I got into a long time ago and then sort of fell out of it. I keep meaning to go back to because, I mean, definitely competent. It's just been one of those things of, I think I read one or two that just didn't work for me or whatever way, and I'm a terrible person as far as taste goes. I'm very easily burned, so it's nothing. You're great, Jukebox, if you're listening. This is no insult against you. It was just like something I read that just didn't quite work, so I haven't gone back to in a long time. But I've definitely seen like concepts that looked really good. I just haven't gone back to them. But as far as one of the up-and-coming FF writers, because I admit I don't read anything else in the archive besides if I know someone's good, I'll read their purple. Red Rose is still sort of getting there, but has some really good ideas and feels like, I mean, I haven't looked at her stuff for a few updates. It makes me feel terrible, but it feels like in like, a few years might be writing those things that are, oh, I wish they were still writing, which I hate to think, but eventually most people stop writing on the archive.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like everybody kind of has, like there's sort of like a life cycle where they're really contributing, actively and consistently. But as we all know, you get older and life doesn't get any less busy, and
No.
and things get in the way, and all. I say get in the way. I mean, you're talking about like families, children, careers.
How dare you get in the way of me writing my horrible mind control fan fiction, daughter?
Exactly,
How can you do that?
But I think that one of the things about Jukebox that I respect so much is number one, he's a very, very competent and talented writer.
Oh, yeah.
But just the wealth of ideas that he explores, and how different some of the concepts are, and just like his consistency as a writer. I mean, he goes through periods of time where he's doing something new every single week, and it's always varied and interesting. And I really am. I have such immense respect for him. In addition to the fact that I absolutely love some of his stories.
Oh yeah, no, some of them are. I definitely. There's one that always stands out to me with the strange house architecture that somehow, if you live in it, turns you into a lesbian. And I haven't read it in years, but the fact that I'm still thinking of it, it's been at least 7 years since I've read it, definitely says something.
Yeah, well, and it's like one of those things, like just something about the concept. It stays with you. And I love that series that he and Thrall worked on together. I can't remember what they officially called it, but like the whiter shade of pale stories about the kind of like she's sort of like some kind of like vampire kind of creature that would absorb your essence, like just through physical contact. Yeah. But she'd be pale, and then she'd get like all nice and olive skinned after she drained you, and there's kind of there's romance to that, and some great qualities.
Yeah, I feel like I missed that, so I'm definitely have to go back and find it.
It's on Thrall's page. If you go to Thrall's page, they're all there. And I can't remember which order they go in, but it's Hazy Shade of Winter, Love Like Winter, and A Whiter Shade of Pale are the three. They're from 2010. Really, really good series.
I will have to go back and read those. Another that's less like super new, because they're like sort of been around since at least 2009 from looking here. But Marcus is still putting out good stuff. Oh yeah,
Marcus is great. Yeah, I've read this stuff.
Contractual Consent gets a definite shout out from me for being. It's a lot of the times when you're writing mind control. I don't want to say, you're trying to find the way to get to the horrible conspiracy, sex, etc., whatever you're going to do with it. It's always fun to see someone think, now, there's got to be other applications for this.
Yeah.
Because there's infinite things you can do when you got into someone's brain.
Oh, yeah. It is limited only by your imagination.
And just because I know she listens to your show, and she was super excited when you spoke about it before, Connie K's stuff, I had the privilege of editing her first thing. Not so much editing, it's just saying, this was good, little tweak here. Like, I'm not taking any credit for how that turned out, but it was
great, though.
Really great, and her follow-up was even better. So
yeah.
I want more, Connie. Give me more.
I'm in the same boat. She's one that I've got my eye on. And then this author that I've just talked about, I think in the last episode or the episode before, Robot Brain, Human Heart.
Haven't gotten around to them. I've seen their name.
Out. Check them out. There's some fantastic stuff going on there. That's also one of these newer authors that I've seen come up that has really, really made an impression on me in a short amount of time.
Oh yeah, no, and there's definitely like a lot of us will, especially that have been reading for a long time, can make it sound like we think that like everything's dead and there's nothing good, but that's definitely not true. There's always been periods where like the big stories aren't necessarily coming out as much, or the name that you want to see. But I mean, like Fembot Heather too.
Fembot Heather's like, great.
Ikiru and Stray Cats was really fun. What was the last one that I'm trying to? It might have been Ikiru, but just very good, very not just what you're going to find on the tin sort of stuff. It's always
That's
good
true.
there.
Well, and the thing is, like anytime you start down this path of like naming names, you're always like, oh, there's going to be people that you're going to leave out, like these great people that do this fantastic work, like Vanderbilt, like Fly By Night, and just on and on and on. I mean, we could talk about all of them. But we've talked a ton about fiction, and although we are kind of running out of time, before we end, I do want to talk about artists, because you are a big fan of artists, and I know you go out of your way to talk a lot about some of the fantastic artists in the community, and people that we are both fans of, people like Suchan, people like Sleepy Maid.
Oh, yeah, Sleepy Maid's work. Let's see, how do I put this right? Because like Suchan was the first artist I saw that captured the mindlessness. Yes. Right. Because you look around everyone else and they're basically just like, oh, how did they look in that episode of Super Friends a million years ago? We'll do that. But the foggy eyes, the distant stares, the awkward poses, because someone mind-controlled shouldn't look just like anyone else, or what's the point? Why are you looking at it visually? But Sleepy Maid has sort of the step beyond that. The take that and then make it wet. Take that and then make it that little bit more uncomfortable, a little bit that more not something you could see in public that is really great. Like that one, I wish I had like links for all these, but that one picture of the woman slumped over in front of her computer reading the mind control one-handed is one of the best mind control pictures there is.
It absolutely is, and you see that recycled so much on like Tumblr, like people making animated GIFs out of it.
Oh yeah,
but it's great. Yes, very much so. The thing about Sleepy Maid with me is that, number one, like her style, and having seen that really develop and solidify into Sleepy Maid's style, which at this point it's very very recognizable. But seeing that style, which perfectly suits her work, but the thing about Sleepy Maid that just is so awe-inspiring for me is like what it takes me cobbling together, anywhere between 3 and 20 different photographs and writing, 3 to 7 paragraphs of text. Sleepy Maid can do in one image.
And
like it blows me away. It blows me away what she can do, and like all the heat and drama and everything that she can convey. And her work has such a great and kind of lighthearted and fun quality to it at times, and then other times like it's really hot, like it's really erotic and just gooey wet deliciousness.
And her women aren't all like, and this isn't like me going off on any kind of like social awareness tangent or anything, but she draws women that aren't all just the same exact type, which makes it so the pictures have a more of a they feel more real, because you've got characters that are sometimes a little bit pudgier, sometimes a little bit more cutesy than looking like they're just a hot vixen. And it makes it so like seeing that cute girl down the hall looking terribly mind controlled is sometimes way hotter than that woman you'll never ever meet. And that makes it fun.
I totally agree. I would go on to say something, but I'm not going to, because like I think I would actually give away a trade secret, something that I have, like an idea I have for something I'm going to do in the future. But anyway, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I'd be totally remiss if I didn't mention Rodem Deshan, who I got to see some of his really early work, and I have it still on my page right next to his most recent. And he went from like, it wasn't bad, but you definitely wouldn't call it like absolutely amazing, to stuff that I could totally see on the cover of a comic book. And that's sort of more his style's more of a, like Sleepy Maid and Suchan have very much more of a, I always forget what's supposed to be Western, Eastern. I guess Eastern influence, but you get more of the Western vibe out of Rodem's stuff, which still definitely captures that mind control and just the horrible, beautiful wrongness, but it's sort of with a different take on it that's been really fun to see evolve, and now it's just astounding. I'm surprised he still has time to do random art of my stuff.
Yes, well, and that's got to be really rewarding. It's got to be really rewarding to see people, bringing to life your characters and these stories, like rendering these things. That's got to be fantastic.
Yeah, I admit Suchan's responsible for a couple of actual outfit designs where what I really love in an artist, as someone who's not a visual artist at all, like I love the kind of stuff you can do because I can't do it. I used to try and I was miserable at it, is to just go, here's the feeling I want. Here's like some details I want in there. Make that something that actually looks good if you make it visual.
Yeah.
Because the first costume I gave Silver Girl was just a Sailor Scout, so I'm not the best at costume. I didn't realize it till years later, but
hey, it worked. I mean, it worked for them,
Yeah, it worked.
It's It's not like it's not like you'd gone with an unproven method.
That is true.
What about poser stuff? Do you like any of the like the 3D poser art that's out there?
I don't follow a lot of it because just I I started following it when it was a little bit too young. People, it was like you have to wait for technology to be able to do something sometimes, but you at the same time, if you don't experiment with it when it's young, it'll never grow. Right. So there's that weird spot, sort of like early '90s CGI in films. Maybe it shouldn't have happened, but because of that,
Godzilla.
we have Pacific Rim. So you kind of have to weigh there. But Uzubono, I know you've shouted out to before, but I can't enough because
I'm a big fan of Uzubono.
Facial expressions,
like facial expressions, and like just some of the ideas, with like various mind control methods and things like that. But facial expressions, she does such a great job at, and I just finished up the new Division.
Oh, there's more.
The Division issue I just finished it recently. Like it came out. I guess it's Aria of the Hive number. Is it number 5?
I'm probably behind you though. I was insanely busy the last 3 months. So
she just did a one-off that is really more sort of like a bondage piece, but there's definitely situational things around it that are mind control.
Well, let's be fair. By now, I mean, you're as an image manipulator, especially, and me, just because I mean, there are some people who think of mind control as hot, and some people where it's like that's what hot is. Can you look at anything now and not see mind control in it if it's hot enough? Like I don't know, I can't.
Actually, that's a good point. That's a really good point, and I don't think that I can. I mean, certainly the things that turn me on that aren't explicitly mind control, I'm usually imagining.
Yeah.
Some bit of mind control in
like
it.
I see that Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover, and I'm just thinking, so how much mind control did it take to get her in that?
Right.
I'll admit it, I'm terrible. But yeah, Uzubono.
Uzubono's great. Yeah, okay. It's the 5th issue of Aria of the Hive that I was talking about. That's out now. And then there's one called The Division, a BDSM short. And then she's just put up a cover for the new issue of Core, which she's working on. Tabico's writing. Which
makes me so jealous. Collaborating with Tabico, that sounds truly amazing. I'm jealous.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, it's fun. It's fun. Tabico and I. And I've done collaborations in the past that have not been fun, but it's fun to work with Tabico. She's very fun to work with.
Let's see it's not.
Oh, Doll Mistress, another one for Poser. Doll Mistress does great stuff.
And she did some actual what's the word? I don't want to call it real art because it's both art, but more traditional art of the first Silvergirl series. She used to do a lot more of it. In fact, if I remember right, she illustrated like most of this one Wonder Woman latex series ages ago.
Oh,
I don't find it anymore. But,
yes, if you ever come across it, I'd love to.
I will definitely share it with you.
Thank you.
But thinking of Poser made me think of MC Comics, which is a great site. I used to have a membership, but I had to lapse a couple times.
Yeah, I've had one off and on a few times and gone back, but there's some great stuff there.
The Sword and Shield series I was especially loving because I admit I'm like the total sucker for just give me a bunch of sexy heroines and a sexy villain and just mind control everywhere. And that was great for that. Most of that one was specifically more at least when I was reading it, hand-drawn. But Sword and Shield stuck out with me. Forgetting her name, but the chick with the hypno tits was kind of amusing when I was watching that.
I'm down for it. I'm so down for it. Here's an interesting anecdote. Okay, there's a story, and I'm not going to be able to remember the author's name. Maybe I can look it up here as I'm talking about it. But there is a story on the archive that I read years and years ago, and it's by Hypno S. It's called Outtakes. It's part of a larger world of stories that was going on that I'm not familiar with, but I just happened to read this one story, and Outtakes it's kind of like 2 short stories. The first one's called Your Man, Agent Moran. And in this story, there's a woman, a detective, Laura, who gets a visit from some other character that is involved in what's going on, and there's a scene in it where this woman, Carla, she goes into, like, she just knocks on Laura's door, like this, in the apartment or whatever. She comes in, there's a little bit of tension between them. Carla goes into the bathroom and she comes back out like in full on, dominatrix sort of mode. She's got this black wig on and she's painted spirals onto her breasts. and just has her way with Detective Martinez. And it's like one of those things that, like, the rest of the story, like, I don't really know what's going on because I'm not familiar with the other stuff. And it's not that it's the greatest thing ever written, but for some reason, like, that scene, like, you talk about the thing that has, like, stayed with me since 2001 or whenever this thing was released. Like, I could never remember what it was. And just within the last year or so, like, I finally did some hardcore Google searching and was able to finally kind of track it down. But it's just, it is interesting how, like, sometimes those little things will just eat at you and stay with you because they do just, I don't know, they connect with you in some way.
But like the first story I found, Hypnotic Roommates, was that it? Yeah, it's 2 parts. It's on the archive. When I first found it, it was 1 part on nifty.org. And it's one of the ones that's submitted by anonymous-0 whatever, because it was back when there was so little stuff that, like, if I wasn't reading the MCSA at the time, but it looked like some of it was actually Simon finding it elsewhere and putting it on there, or, like, I don't know. Right. But I just always remember just check out this psych assignment, puts in tape, walks off, and some of the descriptions of the visuals there, the concentric circles spinning on the screen. I don't know, like, nothing about that specifically is absolutely amazing, but it stuck with me for, like, forever. Just the way that was described, the way the character being controlled is just, like, sort of turning into a mess on the couch. The things that stick with you. Yeah,
it is remarkable how these, I don't know, just like all these different sorts of pieces kind of create this foundation for, I suppose, your tastes and the various things that you gravitate to. But I think the thing that might be kind of interesting to talk about as we close here is just how much amazing, talented work has been done by amazing, talented people, and almost all of it, given away for free, just shared with the community for the appreciation of people like us who are ravenous to consume it. But there are some amazingly, amazingly talented people putting out work in this community, and it's always remarkable to me just how good some of this stuff is.
And I mean, like you said, I know at least 1 or 2 authors on there have another name, and I don't want to say who they are because I'm not hunting them down your other name. You're safe, but there's this craving, like Trilby, for example, just to bring back, amazing writer. I would not be surprised if he had like 3 other names, and I've read other stuff by him without 100% knowing it because there's just so much quality there. And then as the building on, like Sarah H, another name you don't see as much anymore, but so many bits from that just, I think she'd kill me if I didn't bring her up. But
Sarah H was. Do you talk to her much?
I used to quite frequently, but she sort of she gets really busy a lot and just disappears off the face of the world. Yeah. But there's this one scene in one of her stories that I always forget which one. She was the one I was doing the read through last when life blew up in my face again, where a character is going, "What are you seeing with right now?" And the character points at their eyes, and the mind controller goes, "No, you're wrong. Your eyes are just converting light into electrical impulses. You're seeing with your brain," and that one line right there has informed my entire hypno fetish.
Right. That's excellent. Well, listen, the next time you talk with Sarah H, please tell her I'm an enormous fan of hers.
I will happily.
And I'm a total fanboy for Sarah H.
Amazing work there too.
Yes, indeed. Well, all I can say is that going into this conversation, I just sort of assumed that because we had a lot of things in common, we'd have a lot to talk about. And I was right. Again, I was right.
This was a really fun conversation. I mean, you'd think with how we played off each other that we knew each other. I mean, I'd sent some emails in the past, but this is the first time we've ever talked, and I had a lot of fun.
I did too. And we literally talked for like 7 minutes before we started recording, and this is it. But it was an incredibly fun time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a great conversation. And I can't wait to hear some of the thoughts from the people out there. Hopefully they'll recommend some of the stories of their own, maybe some things that some authors or some stories from the authors that maybe we forgot to mention. please bring those up. Share some of your favorites, because we'd love to just bring as many of that into the conversation as we can.
We always want more. When he said we were having this, it's completely true. The MC community always wants more, and there's always something hidden on some obscure site somewhere that maybe you have a backup of. Share it.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell right there. That is what this fetish is. This fetish is scouring the internet and your hard drive for that hidden gem that you know is out there but haven't found yet.
Hopefully someone else will.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us at last to the end of this episode of the Black Room Podcast, and also this spectacular 3-part interview. I want to thank my guest, Madame Kistulot, so much for making time and for being so patient with the extended release schedule that this interview has suffered as a result of the personal things that I was talking about earlier in the episode. But she's been great and very understanding. Be sure and check her out on Twitter at Madame Kistulot, and of course her website is madamekistulot.net. My guest next time on the Black Room will be Jukebox. Stay tuned for that. Should be going up in about a week. So keep your eyes peeled, keep your podcast applications pointed at the Black Room Podcast, and of course check out my website for updates, news, new manipulations, and more, Callidus-mc.com. I'll be back next time with an all-new episode of the Black Room Podcast, bringing you all the best from the world of the erotic mind control fetish. Thank you again for joining me. Until next time, farewell.